Since the departure of Tati Castellanos, New York City FC has gone winless in back-to-back matches. Fortunately for them, though, the club they most recently defeated, Inter Miami CF, waits in the wings. Just 3 weeks ago in the Bronx, Maxi Morales and Eber made a statement on offense, while all-star goalie Sean Johnson was dominant en route to a 2-0 victory. City seeks their 6th consecutive win over their South Beach foes, while attempting to keep pace atop the Eastern Conference table in their first match out of the All-Star break. New York City, Miami. It's time for the NYCFC Pregame Live from DRV PNK Stadium. Here's Glenn Crooks.
Well, it's not just Glenn Crooks. Look who's here.
How are you?
Now get in the frame a little bit better. You got the nice suit on and everything.
Let's do it. Hold on.
Franco
right,
Panizo with us. And Franco is a guest here on the Pregame Live. He's also going to share the commentary booth with me today as Matty Lawrence is home sick. And so Franco lives down this way. I hear about South Beach, and I wonder about sports teams and their level of success. And Inter Miami certainly has struggled in the early stages of their existence. And I don't know, with South Beach right there, it just seems like it might be too tempting.
Yeah, no, look, hello to everybody. Hello, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Look, I was just saying it on the Spanish pregame show here that there are a lot of options to do a lot of things. Like tonight, for example, Bad Bunny's having a concert at Hard Rock Stadium. Bad Bunny's probably one of the biggest music artists right now, and a lot of people will be there at Hard Rock, maybe not here at the stadium. So there's a lot of competition for dollars and time.
Wow.
So, yeah.
We heard 12,000 seats pre-sold. What does that mean in terms of walk-up, or is that pretty much what we'll get, you think?
If they get that, like I said in Spanish just now, if they get that, then that's a good thing. Because, again, Bad Bunny's a big ticket. He performed yesterday. He performed today. Actually went yesterday. Was feeling it a bit this morning, but I'm better now.
So how was the show? I mean, for some of our viewers and listeners, I have not. I'm not familiar.
You don't know who Bad Bunny is?
I don't.
It's reggaeton, so it's Spanish. It's in Spanish.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously he's a big sensation in Miami. I mean, he's definitely a big sensation globally right now. My podcast that I do here covers specifically in Miami. My co-host didn't know who Bad Bunny is either, but he's English, so maybe he's not his demographic.
Let's fill in some folks about you, a longtime soccer journalist. We met when you worked for Ivis Galarcep at SBI, and then you moved on from there and have continued all the way to the broadcast booth here tonight for New York City at Inter Miami. But the podcast is called Miami Total Football Radio.
Yes,
and there was a segment. I think it might have been your most recent segment where you talked about David Beckham's son.
Oh, yes.
I was involved in an MLS Next Pro broadcast, New York City against Inter Miami, and watched Beckham play. And I thought Romeo Beckham was a pretty good player. I don't know if he's just I'm suspecting he's not just there because of his father. But on your podcast, you indicated, and we're going to get to the game, but these kinds of things interest me.
Yeah, that's what the podcast is for.
Beckham, the big owner here and the ambassador for FIFA in Qatar, saying all these nice things about Qatar. But beyond that, in order to get an interview, no one's interviewed Romeo Beckham, which
that is true.
Is unusual unto himself because he's also the assist leader in the league. So he's performing at a level where you'd want to interview him. Number one, he's David Beckham's kid. How would you secure an interview? You kind of described that in the podcast.
I'm not sure how you secure an interview. I guess you have to have an in with the Beckhams. If you're hand-picked or hand-selected to do an interview, because Romeo Beckham hasn't spoken. Look, I've seen him at the training facility when I come for practice. Seems like a very nice kid. Smiles, he even banters, says hello.
Yeah.
Nice kid, and I don't think it's his decision that he's not doing interviews. I think it comes from the top. So I think the parents and the Beckham brand, it's obviously a powerful brand. So they try not to expose him too much to the public light, because every other Inter Miami 2 player has done availability at one point this season, whether it's after a game or at practice. Practically every single player. Romeo Beckham has not. Harvey Neville, Phil Neville's
Harvey
son,
Neville has.
He's spoken multiple times. But listen, the Beckham brand's powerful. We know that Beckham has his hands in a lot of jars, so clearly they're trying to not expose him to the public.
Has he gotten any pushback locally, David Beckham, for the fact he is this ambassador and part of his duties is to, some people would call it sports washing. It's an effort for Qatar to put a good face on for the World Cup, despite some of the things that are well documented that haven't gone so well. So has there been anything said about that
really.
in this community?
Not really.
Okay.
No, not really. There hasn't been much pushback. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that take exception to it, but not by and large. It's not a big talking point. I mean, I went to Qatar in June, so I've seen some of the things up close and personal. But I mean,
what can you tell us about what you saw?
Beers are very expensive. You actually can't drink.
You can. Where?
But only in certain places like bars or restaurants that have, I guess, the license. It's not as readily available. You can't drink publicly like out in the streets. Like you can't hear at a game and tailgate. You can't do that. They didn't have any beers at the stadium. I went to go watch Peru's unfortunate playoff against Australia.
We'll get to that in a bit too, with a Peruvian who's not going to be here playing. I'm sure you're going to miss that Alex Collins is not here. And you were. What else stood out to you when you spent time there? The beer thing, it's you can laugh about it a little bit, but it's really an issue, and it doesn't seem like they've resolved how they're going to go about it. You know?
Honestly, being there, you hear a lot of things. But you got to actually go and see for yourself.
Sure.
Is what I would say. But for me, my experience, I didn't see anything extraordinary or anything that I was like, oh wow, that's really culture shock. It just seemed like a desert city that has this downtown area, which is nice, and
temperature
very hot. The stadium though, I mean,
but you have the heat here and the humidity. Can you compare?
It's a drier.
It's still
heat.
It's oppressive still, right?
Yes. It's definitely hot. It's that you feel the heat. But the stadium, that is one cool thing I'll share. The stadium, and I think all World Cup stadiums will have this. They all have their personalized AC underneath. So when we were in the stadium
underneath
at night,
the field,
no, underneath each seat.
Underneath each seat.
Yeah, for the fans.
Oh wow.
To stay cool. So when we were in the stadium, it felt like almost nippy for a bit because it went to penalty kicks, so the cold set in a little bit. Then we walked back outside. And then you felt the heat again. You smelled it smack you in the face, but it definitely felt cool inside the stadium, which was interesting.
Well, let me ask you about this stadium, and I want to show I'm gonna put this on right now just to see, so we could see this pink stadium, DRV Pink Stadium, and this is the old Lockhart Stadium, which I went to years and years ago when the North American Soccer League, Fort Lauderdale Strikers. But it seems like a nice structure. I mean, do the supporters enjoy coming to a game? There's the stand. Well, that's a sitting section. It almost looks like a standing section over there, but
that's the supporter section. That's where you'll see the La Familia as they've been dubbed. There's a few different supporters groups. You can see some of the names right there, but they're all together known as La Familia, which is the family. In English.
Well, that's nice. Well, it's a facility that for us, we've got a great vantage point. We're right at halfway, and our ability to call the game tonight is going to be fun. And our commentary starts at 7:45 with a pregame show with head coach Nick Cushing for New York City FC. We're going to reveal the lineup here in just a few minutes. And Franco, let's just maybe talk about the series a little bit. New York City has been dominant. They've played 5 times, all wins for New York City. It started at the Wide World of Sports at Disney World during the pandemic, the MLS Next tournament. So I think Ijmal Tajiri-Shradi scored the goal for New York City to win it, and Shradi's now back in the Eastern Conference with the New England Revolution, outscoring Miami 11-3. You look back, it was 2-0 earlier this year. Home game for New York City. Last year here in late October, 3-1 New York City. Not a particularly good game, but for Inter Miami. But there's been a huge overhaul. I told you, I was sitting with Ariel Hudas on the Spanish side last night. I'm just counting. I counted 10 players who are either new or didn't play much or at all last year that are getting significant minutes.
Yeah, they completely overhauled the team. I do think we'll see a more attack-minded Inter Miami tonight, and maybe that will lead to some success. They now have a 10 with Pozuelo. They had him against NYCFC at Yankee Stadium, but it's obviously the field's a bit smaller there, and then not as much space to operate. Phil Neville doesn't like that, though.
But he hasn't cared about that. Pozuelo hasn't cared about playing at Yankee Stadium or anywhere against the New York City FC.
So Inter Miami's a team that before Pozuelo, their their approach was to attack down the wings.
Yeah.
Then it's still a lot of what they like to do, although now they have the option through the middle with Pozuelo. So I do think today we'll see a more attack-minded Inter Miami. They need points. Obviously, they're trying to get into the playoff spot. So I think we'll see an attack-minded Inter Miami, and maybe that leads to success because obviously the short history between the two teams, it's gone all in NYCFC's favor. I don't think Inter Miami had as good of a team in those games as they do today right now.
Phil Neville, the head coach for Inter Miami CF, like many coaches do, they talk about Yankee Stadium and the dimensions and the issues before the match, which I've always thought was a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're almost, and of course, narrow, making the field more narrow in training and shorter, and to try to replicate it. But Anton Tinnerholm did a commentary with me one game against DC United, and he said he knows so many players in the league who just hate coming to play there. Yeah. What else did Phil Neville say about it?
Phil Neville tried to be diplomatic. And Phil Neville's a great quote, but he tried to be diplomatic, but he essentially was saying like it's kind of ridiculous that they're playing on a field so narrow and this and that. He tried to decorate his criticism by saying, "Oh, but it's a historic stadium, so we'll be playing at a historic stadium like Yankee Stadium." And he tried to play nice, but you could tell reading between the lines that he was not happy about the size and the dimensions and the criticisms that we've heard throughout NYCFC's time playing at Yankee Stadium.
One thing we've learned is that Phil Neville and head coach Nick Cushing on the New York City side, they know each other quite well. Cushing coached Phil's son in the New York City FC Academy, and then when Phil was the women's coach for the England national team, Nick was coaching the Manchester City women, and many of his players played for Phil Neville at that time. So there's a friendship there, and they're colleagues. They talk about the game a lot. But now Cushing comes in, and he's 4-2-4 as the interim coach. He's still trying to find that permanent position. But I said earlier, I'm sure you're disappointed. Alexander Collins was injured in the last match for New York City FC, the 3-2 loss against Columbus, and it was looked like a severe injury. Cucho Hernandez. It wasn't intentional at all, but it was an unfortunate situation. And the way it bent, way it bent back, you just thought this is very serious. Well. That's the first question. This is the first injury report we got earlier in the week when I spoke to Nick as part of our pregame interview.
He is with the medical team at the moment. His MCL. It's an issue with his MCL in the knee. For me as head coach, especially with games coming thick and fast, it's we rely on the medical team to work with him. He won't be ready for Miami, and we'll allow them to do their work and get stuck into him. He's in the gym. You can hear him before you can see him, so he's in good mood. So for us, it's concentrating on the game, but yeah, he's stuck with the medical team now.
One thing Anton Tinnerholm said to me once, which has stuck with me regarding Collins, is that he's an animal in the weight room. And I would imagine maybe the way he goes at it like that could help with an injury like that.
Yeah, I think when you look at your top performers are at that level because of the way that they work every day. And I think, Thiago Martins was a really good example in my first game. He has the ankle injury, and the first thoughts is it's really serious, and he looks in a lot of pain, and then he goes off the pitch, and then we hand him over to our medical team, and they do a brilliant job of getting him back ahead of schedule. And of course they play a really huge part in that, the players, because of their commitment and their drive and their hunger. And Alex is no different. He'll work every day to be back, and he'll be back with the team as soon as we can get him back with the team. And it's the same as what I've said before when Tati left, is it's an opportunity now. Maxime Chanot, we've played Alfredo Morelos down there. We've got backup fullbacks. So there's another opportunity for another player.
Yeah, in observing Alexander Collins over the years, and he's gotten better each year, and what he's done, for sure with the Peruvian national team, just solidifying a spot there. And the number of times he went into camp or competitions where he's on the bench, doesn't get on the field, and there's frustration back at the New York City end because they're losing him and he's not playing at all. But then he became this rock in defense for Peru, and certainly here. you could argue that he's the best central defender in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been very. I mean, I lived in New York for a bit, and I was there from the start of NYCFC's inception to 2020 when I moved back right before the pandemic, just by sheer coincidence. So I have seen him develop from his arrival. I think he's been very good since he got there. I thought he was good when he first arrived. I think he's even better now. Like you said, he translated that into a starting role with Peru's national team. It took a lot of time and patience, but he did become a starter during this qualifying campaign, which ultimately fell short. We'll see what his role with Peru's national team going forward is, because Peru's had a coaching change. Ricardo Gareca didn't renew his contract, didn't sign a new deal, they couldn't come to terms, so he's gone. They have brought in Reynoso, who coached in Mexico, and he's familiar with certain Peruvians that play in Mexico. One that goes by the name of Luis Abraham, who's a left-footed center back as well.
Wow.
So there is talk already of Will Cayens, despite his great level and then how well he's performed, will he be the guy under the new coach, or will the new coach pick someone he's a little bit more familiar with? So that's to be determined. We'll see soon.
I suppose you always have to battle for your position, but you're always dealing in a change like that with the preferences of the new administration, the new coach. Franco Pizzo with us. I'm Glenn Crooks. We're going to be providing the live commentary beginning at 7:45 of New York City at Inter Miami. New York City 5-0 lifetime against Inter Miami. So it's a short series, but it's been an effective one for New York City FC. But they'll have to do it this time without Tati Castellanos. You heard Nick Cushing mention Tati, and he's still answering those questions until that striker position gets solved. Eber has started in place of Tati the last two games, and Tati Castellanos' farewell match was the 2-0 win over Inter Miami, assisted on the game-winning goal by Maxi Barrales. And then Eber, quite appropriately, comes in for Castellanos, the heir apparent now, and he scores the clinching goal to make it 2-0. But in the last two matches since, Eber has one shot and only 3 touches total in the opposition penalty area. So he hasn't been as involved. And I asked Nick Cushing about that.
Eber really admirably filled in for him during the course of the season when Castellanos was either suspended or injured. But now he's gone. Last 2 matches, Eber, just looking at some of the analytics, I don't know how deep you get into it and what course of action you take, but very few touches in the opponent penalty area and really not getting chances. Can you share with us what you might need to do in order to get Eber closer to the goal in positions where he can do what he does best?
Yeah, I think it's natural in the sense of he hasn't played 90 minutes back to back over a long period of time because of the injury and because of Tati's form. So we have to give him allowances that he can get the rhythm and get the sharpness that he needs to be at his best. But I still think he's been good. He's been a valuable member of the team. He's been a valuable part of our build-up. I think that the penalty box entries and the touches in the penalty box is a team thing. It's not Heber doesn't own that. He doesn't own that. The team owns that. We have to get closer to the goal. We have to get into positions where we can create chances. And against Montreal, we didn't do that enough. Against Columbus, we did that more. But there's an element of work and of us getting on the training pitch and building cohesion. It's when you change players, and we've changed 2 or 3 because Eber coming in, Gabriel starting the game. Tales off the side. We had Tales in the 9. We had Maxi in the 10. We've had Santi in the 10. It's changes, and you have to work at those relationships, and you have to work at gaining the cohesion between the front 4. The good thing is we've got a lot of talent there.
So what do you think of that, Franco? There's a lot there, and to unpack as to the effectiveness of Eber, but playing back-to-back 90-minute matches, which he hasn't done in a while. Right. So you would suspect at any moment now the lineup will be published. And then at that time, I'm going to play another clip with Nick Cushing to discuss a little portion of what will be a change in the lineup. But what did you think?
You need your striker to be involved. You need your striker to be effective in the final third. That's not all they have to do, but that's a big part of what they need to do and their responsibilities and their duties on the field. So if that's not being done and there's not enough in the other elements, then it could be that we see a change today. So we'll see how it goes. But obviously, if whoever's up there, NYCFC is going to want a little bit more production up top.
I want to show you something from American Soccer Analysis. Okay. I have that right? Yeah. So I think some of the things, I like analytics. I'm a coach. I like to see how different things work, and this kind of was very stark in the comparison of Inter Miami and New York City and their pressing. So let me. I just need to find it here. So bear with me. So here it is, and what it is it goes over the number of times that a team presses, and where they press, and in particular here, the attacking third. Inter Miami is all the way to the left, while New York City, earlier in the year before Ronnie Dyla left for Standard Liège, was more up by where FC Dallas is right now, and it's sort of in that facility. So the part of the story here was that under Nick Cushing, this is New York City FC right here. I'm pointing for Franco. It's a little hard for us to see, but they're just below the halfway line. So it's kind of interesting to see. And you see the Red Bulls are up.
Yeah, I was looking for the Red Bulls and I couldn't find them.
Way up to the left.
There
so it's interesting. A majority of the teams either press centrally or to the right. Does that mean the left-footed players are a little bit more vulnerable to giving the ball away, or what it might be? But
I've actually heard that, and I forgot where I heard this was years ago, and it was like, generally speaking, a player that gets the most touches is the right back, which is interesting, generally speaking.
Wow. Well,
I forgot what team it was, and someone's like, the right back touches the ball most often, and it's probably because goalkeepers tend to be right-footed, so they end up passing there more. It could be that. There could be an explanation for it.
Well, the fullback for New York City is so effective in that area and getting a lot of touches was Anton Tinnerholm. Then the Achilles surgery. Then he came back. Then an ankle injury, which took a little bit longer than either he or the team expected. He came on in a reserve role, was told midweek by Nick Cushing that he's not ready to start yet, but we'll likely see him off the bench again tonight. And modern day football and the teams that don't get the kind of production out of the fullbacks as others tend not to be as successful.
Yeah, well, Inter Miami would be an example of that then, because they have DeAndre Yedlin. They signed him. He's got U.S. men's national team experience. He's got a lot of speed, but he hasn't necessarily produced all that much in the final third, despite him getting forward, despite him serving as an outlet pass up there. And then on the left side, they have Christopher McVeigh, who's a center back, is playing out of position at left back. It's where he's spent a lot of this season, so they haven't gotten a whole lot of production from their fullbacks. But like you said, obviously, when you're in modern day soccer, modern day football, you need your fullbacks to chip in and help you in the attacking part.
Well, let me ask you about Kieran Gibbs. I hear that name, and I think Arsenal, EPL, and playing at that level. Yet it doesn't seem, from the outside looking in, that he's made that much of a contribution to the side.
So he signed last year, right. And when he's played, he has shown good things. Given the team more soccer, more football, more attacking ideas from that left back position. The problem is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's had a lot of injuries. I don't know if his body is breaking down at an older age. But
he is starting today. The Miami starting 11 has been released. So Gibbs is on the left at the back. Damian Lowe, Christopher McVeigh, DeAndre Yedlin. So what do you think of that back four with the goalkeeper calendar against the New York City attack?
So that's definitely if it's a back four, because
right. I know they've played different ways.
They like to say it's a back four and then they come out and it's a back five. We've seen Inter Miami do that countless times this year. But anyway, let's say it's a back four. Kieran Gibbs is in there. I think he gives the team more soccer, more football. But again, it's been the health that has hindered him and not allowed him to find that rhythm and that flow of games. You can see he's had this injury or that injury, and it's been constant. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy.
These old guys, he's 32 years old,
He's younger than I am, apparently.
But, and this will be his 11th game, his 6th start, has failed to contribute any help on the attacking side in terms of an assist or a goal. And maybe your expectation is that that's the sort of part of the game he's going to contribute with.
Well, so there was a game against Charlotte this year where he played at left back, and he was probably Inter Miami's most dangerous attacking player on the day. He had numerous goal-scoring opportunities, and he didn't put them away. But if he is playing left back today, then yes, I expect him to get forward and maybe give Inter Miami a little bit more balance in terms of that full-back attacking play. But again, I have to see it on the field because they can say it's a back four, but Kieran Gibbs has also played left center back in a back five, and Robert Taylor has played as a left wing back. So we'll see what look Inter Miami goes with.
Yeah, well, and now we can get an idea of who Gibbs might be going against. Nico Acevedo starting at fullback. Tavon Gray did not travel. He suffered an injury in Friday's training session, and I was at the session. Forgive me, it was Thursday, and then he was diagnosed on Friday and then didn't make the trip. It doesn't appear to be serious, but Tavon Gray has been working ferociously on his service. Defensively, his 1v1 defending, his recovery, getting into positions has been impeccable. But conversely, his service has been poor for the most part, inaccurate, and he hit a low, hard-driven service. It was beautiful, bending right into the back post player. I think the shot was missed, but he left training after that. Then I saw him working on the side a little bit. So it's probably, I mean, my guess is that it's a slight groin pull because that might beat when you're trying to spin the ball.
Right.
That's the muscle that could go a little bit. But Nico Acevedo, whose last start at fullback on the right was against Minnesota many, many games ago, May the 28th, right before the international break. But he has been an emergency substitute there. But this is you talk about depth. You think you got Anton Tinnerholm, Tavon Gray, very deep at a position. Now you've got a midfielder playing fullback.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. Against Kieran Gibbs, who likes to get forward, again, we're assuming he's playing the left back, then that could cause some problems for NYCFC. We'll see how the defense manages that. Also, like we talked about before, they're also missing Alexander Cayens. So it's going to be a task for this NYCFC backline today.
That's right.
Especially against an Inter Miami team that is going to look to attack, I'm sure. But NYCFC has shown that they can get the job done in more ways than one. So
the other decision that Nick Cushy needed to make was striker. Eber ineffective the last two matches, but Nick put it in this way that Eber hadn't played back-to-back 90-minute matches in a long, long time. So he was going to sit him anyway, and that means Tyler Magno will start as a striker, and it'll be Thiago Andrade entering the lineup as a starter, along with Gabriel Pereira, with Santi Rodriguez sitting in the middle of that three-player group behind Tyler Magno. It's the first time that Thiago and Pereira have started in the same game. But I asked Nick Cushing this week during our one-on-one how things might change with Tyler Magno as a striker.
When you make a switch to Tyler Magno at striker, how does that affect things? Do you look at everything in a similar way, or are there little things that you can do or maybe that are less apparent?
I don't think it's such a change in Eber out and Tales in, because I think they're very similar in the way that they like to link the play with their feet. They're very much box number nines. They want the ball in the box so that they can finish one touch, two touch. I think the biggest shift is when you bring Thiago Andrade in, because he gives us real speed and he attacks space really well. You see the chance that he gets just as he goes on. He's really natural for him to attack space, and he is hungry to go past people. So I think that brings us another dynamic. As I say, I just think we've got to continue to work at building the cohesion between, the front four positions.
Four positions today, Franco, are going to be Gabriel Pereira on the right. He scored the goal that leveled the match last week for a moment against Columbus. And then it's Santi Rodriguez, who leads the league in game-winning assists. And Thiago Andrade, the guy with the pace, and Tyler Magno up top. So we got a game to call, man.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Seeing how that quartet does against Inter Miami's backline, which hasn't always held up well. So we'll see how how the chess match on the green field, the green rectangle.
The
goes.
green DRV Pink Stadium. What's the derivative? What?
Drive.
Drive Pink
Yeah, it's Drive
Stadium.
Pink Stadium. Yeah.
Drive. I suppose I should know that, but it says DRV.
Yeah,
I can't say DRV.
They also, I mean, Pink doesn't have an I in it either. That's just how they
All
do
right.
it.
Thanks for the clarification.
There you go.
If you look closely, you can see the New York City FC goalkeepers warming up. In particular, Sean Johnson in goal. He leads the league with 12 shutouts. New York City, they're on quite a run. They've only lost one of their last 8. We know the last match was a loss at Columbus 3-2. And the 2 losses in their last 18 games. And for Miami, the goodwill has been modest in terms of results, but better. And this is huge for them because they're fighting for a playoff spot. New York City's fighting for respectability post Tati Castellanos, and now without Alexander Collins, a couple of all-stars.
Right.
The third all-star, Sean Johnson, in goal. Well, Franco, I'm really looking forward to it. Great to see you.
Man.
Thanks for being with us on this. We're going to be back with you in about 15 minutes on the New York City FC Network. That's nycfc.com/radio. It's also available on the New York City FC app or TuneIn app if you have TuneIn on your phone. That's a great app as well, so you should get it if you don't. So for Franco Panizo, I'm Glenn Crooks. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. Enjoy the game, everybody.